Darth, Kermit here with an initial video on the Challenge Pit 2.0 changes and best teams. I expect the lineups to change pretty rapidly over the next few weeks, so stay tuned for updated team guides and a follow-up to this video. Before I get into it, if you like my videos, please like, share, subscribe, leave a comment down below, and support me on Patreon for written guides, mod profiles, and other perks. Or just because you want me to keep making videos. Okay, now let's start with a quick overview of the changes. If you're already completely familiar with the changes, feel free to skip to the next chapter to get right to the lineups. But for those who haven't been following everything particularly close, or just want a refresher, here are the basics. The biggest change is that the ramping speed and damage is no longer persistent between runs and players. This means that you do not have to coordinate your entire guild and have everyone play and post damage at the same time. Next, they have replaced the persistent ramping speed and damage with a more frequent, exponentially ramping speed and damage mechanic that is instanced to each individual run. Now, instead of the boss ramping by 75% speed and damage every 20% health lost, the boss will ramp 20% speed and damage exponentially every 2% health lost. So assuming you start your run at 100% boss health, when the boss hits 98%, it will gain 20% speed and damage, and then when it hits 96% health, it will gain an additional 40% for a total gain of 60%. Then it will be at plus 120%, then plus 200%, and so on. You can see that this quickly gets way out of hand and makes any kind of phase solo completely impossible. And lastly, CG has reduced the effectiveness of the stacking debuffs that would reduce the offense, tenacity, and mastery of all player characters at the start of each boss turn. The debuff is still 5% reduction of each of the 3 stats every boss turn, but now it caps at 50% reduction and is no longer tripled for Galactic Legends. And that's it for the changes. Let's get to the lineups. For Phase 1, so far things haven't really changed much. In the top spot, we have the same lineup that we've been using for Phase 1 Supreme Leader Kylo. So far, the highest score I've seen with it is 14.5% with an R7 Kylo. The biggest downside is that this comp uses Watt, whom you really want to go with Vader, since Vader is so very effective in all phases after the changes. So we'll definitely be looking into how effective we can be without Watt in this lineup. My current video guide for this team still mostly works. The main adjustment will be to start siphoning earlier. Once we really nail down the most effective time to begin siphoning, I'll post an updated video guide. Vader is still in second place for Phase 1 with the same lineup. I've seen as high as just over 10% from this team so far. Pretty big change to how it runs, so my current video guide won't be quite as useful, though it'll cover the basics. The main difference is that you are only really going to go for one giant culling blade. Wait and stack as many dots as you possibly can, and then go into Merciless Massacre and throw the blade. Personally, I think this team can get past 12 or even 14%, but we'll have to wait and see. Third up is the Rey Rex Phase 1 lineup. I still recommend saving Rey for Phase 4 for any guilds on the edge of clearing CPit, but for everyone else, now that you can very easily kitchen sink Phase 4, Rey is back in the Phase 1 list. And for this team, my current video guide still works mostly fine. The main adjustment is that you are going for fewer aerial advantages and you just want to draw the fight out as long as possible to make the second AA as big as possible. Honorable mentions. Padme with Galactic Republic still works here just fine, as does Gas 501st. Things are definitely shaking up a bit as we get into Phases 2 and 3. We actually might even start seeing some real separation in Phase 2 and 3 teams. But for this video, I'm still going to combine them. Again, you need to make sure you have a debuffer in Phase 2 and a debuff cleanse in Phase 3, but most teams have both of those anyway, so there's really not much difference. So far, we actually have a bit of a tie for first place in Phase 2 and 3. Supreme Leader Kylo with Night Sisters and Vader with Newt and Thrawn are already both putting up about 11%. But since the Vader team doesn't require a Galactic Legend, it definitely wins the tie. The only real downside here is having to take Newt Gunray to R5, but he really has a super fun kit anyway, so you'll get decent use out of him. Stay tuned for a guide to this team. The Slacker Night Sisters team is back in the lineup and just as RNG dependent as ever. If you have the patience for it, this team can really do some work once you get good RNG. My current video still holds up pretty well for this lineup. I haven't seen a ton of reporting for the Slacker Thrawn lineup yet, but it seems to be getting 6+% easily enough. I'll definitely be doing some personal testing on this lineup over the next few weeks, but my current vid should hold up pretty well on this one. Now, I've been meaning to add Imperial Troopers to this list for a long while, but then CPit changes were announced and we got the new Dark Trooper. But now that things are starting to settle, the best lineup seems to be Veers, Piet, Stark, Gideon, and Dark Trooper. Obviously, that's a bit of a whale lineup right now, but you can also use Range and Death Trooper here too, with a little bit less damage. Stay tuned for a video guide to Troopers in the near future. Up next is Jedi. I know it's vague, but I have a ton of reports coming in of various Jedi comps doing as much as 7% without any galactic legends. Jedi Master Luke can definitely help here, but JKL or JKR lead with whatever Jedi you have at R5 can do some work. Obviously, the more damage dealers the better, and some good RNG with Jolee can let you drag it out for more damage. See my previous JKL vid for some basic guidance that still applies. Lastly, Shaak Ti in the 501st seems to be holding up quite well here. The major adjustment is only going for 2 aerial advantages and trying to hold the second one as long as possible to ramp the damage. I'm hearing reports as high as 7%, but I haven't been able to confirm yet. Stay tuned for a video guide. Honorable mentions: Padme and Galactic Republic, Aura Singh and the Bounty Hunters, Gas 501st, and Sith Empire are all easily capable of doing more than 2% in phases 2 and 3. So phase 4 is both the most affected and least effective phase by the changes. For all intents and purposes, all previous lineups for phase 4 are unchanged. However, because players can now use multiple teams in phase 4 and there's no longer the massive coordination requirement, phase 4 is wildly easier than it was previously. Basically, any team that was previously able to do around 2% damage will still do about the same, and any team that was able to do more than 2% damage will now do just a bit less damage. First, there's a bit of a change to the JKR Rey lineup. Now that we're seeing a lot more 7-star cams out there, it turns out that he definitely adds some damage to this team when used in place of General Skywalker. Otherwise, this is still pretty much the same, and you can see my previous vid on this lineup for the basics. Rey, JKR, and Hoda keep everyone alive, while JKL and Cam or Gas do all the damage. If you don't have your Jedi up to R5 to use with Rey, then this still seems to be the second best Phase 4 team. The main difference is just waiting as long as possible before using the second aerial advantage. Now, if you have JML and all the Jedi ready to go but not Rey, then this seems to be the third best option for Phase 4. It's probably better to use Vader elsewhere now, but if you give him Sith Eternal, Wat, Malak, and another Sith, Sidious is best for more dots, then you can still get a consistent 3 to 4% in Phase 4. And then there's the kitchen sink. Pretty much anything else isn't going to get much more than 2% here, but you can throw everything you have at Phase 4 now. And this, plus the lack of a coordination requirement, makes Phase 4 wildly easier to complete now. And that's it for now. I'll try to keep the video description updated with significant changes as they come in, and I'll put out a follow-up video in a couple weeks. Most of my current team guides will still hold up with some minor changes and lower damage targets, but I will definitely be putting out new guides over the coming weeks. I've also created an announcement channel on my Discord that I'll keep up to date with current top teams for each phase, so subscribe that channel to your guild's Discord server to keep everyone updated. And as always, if you like my videos, please like, share, subscribe, leave a comment down below, and support me on Patreon for written guides, mod profiles, and other perks. Or just because you want me to keep making videos. Till next time.
I find your lack of rainbow connection disturbing.